Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wondered what inspired your favorite songs? Or have you ever wondered what books your favorite music artists love? Because I have too. And I have found a few popular songs that were inspired by books. So I'm excited to embark on this journey to read those books and see the meaning of some of these songs and where that inspiration comes through. So I will be reading 3 books in this video, which I will tell you guys in a second. Each book will have a reading vlog portion, so I go through my thoughts while reading the books and then my overall rating and review at the end. And then after that, we will sit down and I want to look at the lyrics with you guys as well for each of the songs to see if you can see the inspiration and see how book translates into song. So I'm really excited for this. I have 3 books, like I said, to read today, so let me go through those with you guys. So the first one that I will be reading is Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Suskind. This has been on my TBR for a long time. The song that is inspired by this book is Scentless Apprentice by Nirvana. Out of the 3 books that I will be reading, 3 songs that I will be talking about in here, this is the one that I know the least. I do listen to Nirvana from time to time, but I would say the other 2 are definitely songs and bands that I'm a much bigger fan of, but I'm still really excited for this one. Then I will be reading This Side of Paradise by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the song that this inspired is The Other Side of Paradise by Glass Animals, who is one of my favorite bands, and this album is one of my favorite albums ever. Can I just go on a little side note and say that when this album came out in like 2016, I was 16 years old, and literally for like a month or 2, every single day I would wake up in the morning and put this album on from beginning to end and listen to it, sometimes even multiple times a day. So it has a special place in my heart, and I'm really excited to get to read a book that inspired one of the songs. And then the last book that I will be reading is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, and the song that this book inspired, I keep getting confused, was Four Walls, the Ballad of Perry Smith by Bastille. Bastille is another one of my favorite bands, and this album, Wild World, is another one of my favorite albums of all time. And this specific song, Four Walls, is one of my favorite Bastille songs. If I were to narrow it down, my top 5 Bastille songs, this would definitely be in it. It was another one that 2016, 2017, whenever it came out, I listened to constantly on repeat. I think this song is beautiful, and I'm so excited to read this book, not only because of the song, but just because like of everything that I've heard about this book in general. So those are, let me pick them up. These are the 3 books that I will be reading for this video, so stay tuned. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'm really excited for this concept, so I'll see you all soon. So I've been reading Perfume. I am a little bit over halfway through it now. I am in part 2 of the book. Let me find it. Anyways, this is something I am familiar with. I saw the movie in high school. One of my high school teachers, he actually played a clip of it in class, and me and my friends were like, wait, that was so interesting, like, can we watch the whole movie? And that was the class we used to hang out in on break anyways, so we would go there on our break and we just like watch this movie over the course of a few days until it was over, and I really loved it. So I'm very happy that I'm finally getting to read the book, and I think it's fun that I can fit it into a video as well. But let me give you a little bit of a background. So this is about a boy, and the book starts off with him being born. He is born to a woman who has had like 4 other like stillbirths, and she just like doesn't really give a fuck. Like she doesn't care about the pregnancy, she doesn't want the baby, and she's actually working at a market. She's working at like a fish stall. This takes place in the 1700s in Paris, for some background. So there's a lot of people there and a lot of smells, and she ends up giving birth at this stall at the market, and then she like pushes the fetus in with all the fish scraps that are gonna be sent to the trash, which sounds horrible. So it's actually his crying that alerts people to the fact that he's there. So they take the baby and they arrest the mother, and then he is just kind of like pawned off to different people as a very young infant and toddler, because it's very clear, I feel like, from the beginning that there's something off about him, that he's not quite right, and everybody that like kind of has him in their care feels the same way. So he is sent to like a monastery with like a priest, and the priest is like, this kid is the devil, get it out of here. And so he sends it off to this woman, what are they called, wet nurse. She's like the village wet nurse, and she has a bunch of other infants and children under her care, and she takes him in until they stop paying for him, and he's 8 years old, and then he is sent off to do manual labor with somebody else. And then after that, he's there for a while because that's really the only place that he kind of can fit in, or like have a place to live and like do something. And then when he's like 13 or 14, he ends up meeting this perfumer and learning the trade, I guess, from him, and he wants to make that his like career, I guess, or like that's what he wants to pursue, because the whole entire concept of the book is that he has like an exceptional sense of smell, and that's not even enough to describe it, because like they literally talk about it in the book that like he physically, his sense is so strong that he can like create his own smells, and he stores like everything he's ever smelt, he stores in his memory, and he can just like go back and like smell it from memory. Like, it's really wild. And they explain it very, very well and very in detail at the beginning of the book. So that is what leads him to, he pretty much wants to consume every single scent that he can, whether it's good or bad. Like, he doesn't care. He just wants to smell everything. And he ends up wanting to become a perfumer, and the scent and the perfume that he ends up creating later in the book, which I'm not at yet, but he does that through means of murder. And that's like all I'm gonna say right now, because I don't want to say too much about the plot, but that is like the general story. One thing I will say, I don't have a lot to say for this update, honestly, but I really like the way that it's written. I know sometimes when you go into like a classic or an older book, I think this one was 1985, so it's only 40 years old. It's not that old as far as like classics go, but sometimes I'm a little bit wary because you never know what the writing style is going to be like, and sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get through because it's just not what you're used to if you read a lot of modern stuff. I don't know if that makes sense, but I like the way that this one is written. I feel like it's very easy to picture everything and see what's going on, and I like the narrative voice. I don't know, it's just told in a really fun way. I will say the middle section that I'm at right now, it is kind of losing my interest a little bit. I was pretty hooked for the first 80 or so pages. Like, getting the setup I thought was so fascinating, and now it's losing me a little bit. But I know from seeing the movie, I only saw it once, and like I said, that was high school, so that was like 10 years ago. And there are a few scenes that like stuck in my mind, and I'm very excited to get to those in the second half of the story and see how they're done in the book and how well the movie followed along, and I'm just really excited to see how that all plays out. Unfortunately, that's all I have to say about the book right now. I'm enjoying it. It's taking me a while to get through it because I've been doing other stuff, but I'm determined to finish it pretty soon, hopefully. So I'll let you guys know when I finish it. It was hair wash day. I washed it this morning, so it's looking a little crazy. We're just gonna go with it, okay? Anyways, I finished Perfume, So I want to just talk through my feelings on it before we get into looking at the actual lyrics for the song inspiration. So I know the last update that I did, I was kind of like, I didn't have a lot to say, but I also was kind of a little bit scattered because, I don't know, I had a couple days off of work, my mind was just in a very different place, and I also like, it's taken me a while to read this because I've had so many other things going on, so my thoughts were just very scattered when I did that update, and I fear that it was a little bit evident in that clip. But anyways, I really, really enjoyed the book, which I knew I would because I had seen the movie, so I knew the story, and I knew that I really, really liked the story because overall, like, it's just extremely fascinating story and an extremely fascinating character to follow. And I know I told you guys a little bit about like the background and like his early life in the story as well, but one of the big things with him is that he does not have his own odor. So every single person, you know, has their own scent that is unique to them, but you can't really smell your own odor. Like if I were to smell myself right now, like I can't smell that, but somebody else can smell that. Does that make sense? Like if you, I don't know, if you have a partner and you're like, you live with your partner and you sleep with your partner, you might be able to pick up their pillowcase or their blanket and be like, this smells like that person, but you can't smell yourself. You know what I mean? But the main character in here just does not have a smell, and that is why he is like passed off so often as a young child, and why certain people thought he was like the devil's spawn, because he didn't have an odor, and that was very unusual, especially to have like an infant that doesn't have an odor, and that was a big discussion at the beginning. And so it was really interesting to follow him throughout the story as he's going on the journeys that he's going on and creating different perfumes. But one of the big things he does is he creates perfumes for himself that mimic human odor. So he has like a few different I don't know, scent combinations for the different like moods he's trying to put off. Like he has one that he calls his inconspicuous perfume, where he wants to put it on if he doesn't want to be noticed. And then he has one that smells like slightly sweaty, so that way people don't think of him, what is the word? He doesn't like stand out to people because of the fact that he doesn't have a scent. So that is just an interesting element of the story that I do feel like is worth noting. But I just really, really loved the story, and I loved the character. Like I said, it's very unique and very fascinating, and I really enjoyed the way that the author chose to tell the story. Not only the narrative style, but just like, I don't know, the way that everything progressed, and the way that the story was developed, I really enjoyed. I also think it's worth mentioning that this is a translated book, which I also find so interesting. Like, I love to read translated fiction because, like, I just think how crazy that is, how crazy it must be to be a translator like that, because it's not just about a direct translation word for word what the book is, but you have to capture like the tone of the story and the emotion that the writing is trying to convey within the story. And that's why I think it's so fascinating to read translated fiction, because like I think that the tone of the story was captured so well in the book, and it was translated, so it's really, really interesting. Like, I wonder what that process is like. But of course, at the end of the day, you know, this is a story about a murderer, and you are following this murderer, and it's really interesting because it makes you feel sympathy for him in certain ways. Not that you condone his actions or you're rooting for him, but you come to understand why he does the things that he does in the book, and why he is so determined to kill these people and create this great perfume. And at times his character is slightly relatable, because he really just like, he is in this world where he doesn't fit in. He is not like the average person, and so it's kind of almost like an inner battle of him like trying to fit in with everybody, but then at the same time like being so turned off by humanity and not wanting to be a part of society, and just trying to grapple with those two conflicting things in his mind and eventually leading him to where we are at the end of the book, which the end of this is so fantastic. And I will not spoil anything, but I would highly recommend this book to just about everybody. I mean, it's gruesome at times. It is difficult to read at times because it is kind of descriptive with the murders, and you have to be wary of that before going into it, but it's a fascinating story, and I really, really love the ending of the book. I will say it did drag a little bit through the middle for me, so I think I want to give it 5 stars, but I just don't think I can give it 5 stars because, like I said, it did lose me a little bit towards the middle. So maybe 4.5 stars or 4 star, I'll pop in my final rating. But now we get to look at the lyrics for the song that was inspired by this book, which I think is so fun. So I know I mentioned in the intro like all the song titles. So this one is called Scentless Apprentice, which that in itself, like, you can very clearly see is inspired by the book because he is scentless and he is an apprentice to a perfumer. So let's find the lyrics. There's actually not like a whole lot of actual lyrics in the song, but let's read what there is. So the song starts off with the lines, "Like most babies smell like butter, his smell smelled like no other," which I mentioned to you guys. "He was born scentless and senseless. He was born a scentless apprentice," which, yeah, I feel like that you can definitely see is the book so far, because that is at the beginning when we are introduced to him in his birth and being an infant, and he does not have any smell. "Every wet nurse refused to feed him. Electrolytes smell like semen. I promise not to sell your perfume secrets. There are countless formulas for pressing flowers," which once again definitely alludes to the book at the beginning, with the wet nurse that he ends up living with. But before that, he is kind of passed around because nobody really wants him, and he goes from one person to the next. And then the last verse, I guess, "I lie in the soil and fertilize mushrooms. Leaking out gas fumes are made into perfume. You can't fire me because I quit. Throw me in the fire and I won't throw a fit." And then all between each of the verses are the words "go away." I don't know if it's like the chorus, but he's saying go away, which brings it back to the book as well. And him, like, there is a period in the middle of the book where he just spends 7 years, like, not like solitary confinement, but like by himself, alone, of his own choice, because he is trying to get away from everybody and from the sense of the world. So it makes sense to have a lyric that says go away, because that's kind of like, even at the end of the book, after everything that he goes through, like, he still feels this hatred towards humanity and people. And I feel like you can definitely see the inspiration from the book to the song, I think translates very well. I don't have too much more to say about it, but I did find a clip of Kurt Cobain actually talking about the book and why he likes it, and the different themes, the deeper themes that are within the story and how he feels about those. So I want to include that because I feel like it's best to just get the words straight from the person who wrote the song, why he liked the book so much and why it possibly inspired a song for him. So I will insert that clip in, and then we will move on to book number 2.
Well, I've read Perfume by Patrick Susskind about 10 times in my life, and I can't stop reading it. It's like something that's just stationary in my pocket all the time. It just doesn't leave me, and every time I'm bored, like I'm on an airplane or something, I read it over and over again. Because I'm a hypochondriac, and it just affects me. It makes me want to cut my nose off. What's the book about? It's about this perfume apprentice in France at the turn of the century, and he is disgusted basically with all humans, and he just can't get away from humans. So he goes on this trek, this walk of death, where he goes into the rural areas where there's woods all over the place in the small villages, and he only travels by night, and he just, every time he smells human, like a fire from a far off way, he'll just get really disgusted and hide, and he just tries to stay away from people.
Have vlog. I'm coming at you at a weird spot, at a weird time. But originally I had planned for this video to go up earlier this month, but I fell behind with reading, so it's going up when it's going up. But it's really funny because at this current moment, right now, I am on my way to a Glass Animals concert. And like, I feel like if I'm reading a book in the vlog that then inspired a Glass Animals song, I need to include this in here. And I did hear, a little birdie told me, meaning I looked it up online, and the song that is featured in this video because it inspired the book that I'm reading is on the set list for tonight. So I will definitely insert a clip of that. But I just wanted to pop on and say that because I think it's so funny. Oh my god. Concert was great. Thank you for asking. Hopefully this lighting is not like horrible. I had to close the blinds because if I open them and I sit here, the sun is like right in my eyes. Actually, that's not that bad. I don't know if that makes it worse on the camera though. Anyways, I promise I was going to update you guys before I finish this book, because the book, let me take my sticky note out of here, my little notes that I wanted to say. The book is divided into 3 different sections. So we have book 1, and then we have an interlude, and then there's book 2. So I was planning, once I get to the interlude, which is a little bit over halfway, I was gonna do an update, and then that didn't happen. I ended up finishing the book on accident. Okay, I scooted over a little bit because I don't know what is going on with this sun. Anyways, I ended up finishing the book, but I think it's a good thing that I didn't do an update earlier, because I don't think I need more than one update, more than one clip of me talking about this book, because to keep it short and simple, I did not like it, and I can't really tell you a lot about it because there really is no plot. So like, I can't tell you what it's about, but I'm going to attempt to anyways. So this is actually F. Scott Fitzgerald, his first novel. Obviously everybody knows him for The Great Gatsby. I've read The Great Gatsby and I did enjoy that one, but this is his debut. This came out in 1920, and supposedly this earned him immediate critical and financial success. This book made him rich, and I have to say I don't understand it, and of course like I have to be a little bit like, give myself a little bit of grace with that, because it isn't 1920 anymore, and there are so many other like forms of entertainment and other books that I've read and that I've enjoyed, and maybe if I lived in 1920 and this was the poppin' book at the time, maybe I would have loved it, but I just don't really get it. The story is about this boy named Amory, I think that's how you pronounce it, Amory Blaine, and we are following him mainly through his, like, I don't know what that period is called, his college years. He goes to Regis University, and then he ends up going to Princeton, and we are just following him on this journey, and what else? I don't know. We see him get into different relationships with a lot of different women, have different friendships. We see the way that he changes, like, his personality changes, his ethics when it comes to school and studying, and how excited he is to go to Princeton at first, and then he eventually kind of lets that fall on the back burner, I guess, I don't know, and he kind of neglects his studies a little bit, and in turn takes to reading and learning throughout different other forms in his life, not only reading but also like just being around people and learning from his conversations with other people, and not so much his studies in school. There's also a point, the interlude, he goes to war, I believe World War I, with the timing of everything. I'm pretty sure that's the war that he ends up in. And so we're reading like some letters during the interlude. This is definitely a book that I feel like you could definitely say is experimental. Like, it kind of plays with format a little bit, and I feel like that would make sense if this is his first novel. Like, he's experimenting a little bit in what he wants to write, I guess. So the first, book one, we start off the book learning about Amory and about his mother and about their relationship, and then eventually him going away to school. He's pretty young at the beginning of the book, and I think he's like 15 when he goes away to Regis University. And throughout the first book, it's told through third person about this time in his life, but there's also these like inclusions of different text and different poetry and song lyrics all throughout the book, but especially during this first section, it is very, very prominent. There's a lot of talk of literature and like authors and different books and things that he's reading. And then the interlude, like I said, we get a couple of different letters to tell us people writing to Amory while he's in the war and him writing back from the war. And then we get into book two, which I guess was my favorite. Let me find where it is, because that is actually written, not the entire part is written this way, but a good portion of it is almost written like a play, where you get this introduction of like setting the scene. Like, the time is February. The place is a large, dainty bedroom in the Connage House on 68th Street, New York. A girl's room, pink walls and curtains, a pink bedspread, and a cream-colored bed. And then all the dialogue is like, Cecilia, pink, Rosalind, yes, Cecilia, very snappy. And I don't know, I really like that. I don't know if it was just easier to read after, because like the first section felt so difficult to get through. It was such a chore to get through. Honestly, the whole book was. But I feel like this broke it up nicely, that it was a little bit easier to get through and not as like dense and difficult to read. Not difficult to read, but like just felt like less of a chore to read it when it was written in that way. But the plot, there's not a lot to it. I think that the best way to describe it, if I had to describe it, would be like a journey of self-discovery, but not quite even that. You're just following somebody in this very strange period of your life. Like your your late teens and your early 20s is a very interesting period in anybody's life, and that is just, we are following Amory throughout this life. I've also heard people say that this is kind of what is it, autobiographical fiction? I don't know if that's the right term, where like F. Scott Fitzgerald, I guess, took a lot of his experiences. Like, he grew up in Minnesota and he went to Princeton as well, which is the same with Amory. So I don't know how much of this he really took from his life and how much of it was fiction, but I don't know. I didn't find myself caring about Amory as a main character, and I did not find myself caring about the plot at all, the story, anything that was happening. I was like, why am I reading this? This is the most boring thing I've ever read. But the thing that gets me, of course, F. Scott Fitzgerald, right? He's a name, I feel like anybody who reads, you know that name, right? He's famous for a reason, and that is the quality of his writing. And as much as I disliked actually physically reading this book because I was so bored and I just didn't care and I didn't know where the plot was, I have to give him credit because his writing is stunning. Like, he has this, the way that he strings words together to form the sentences that he does is crazy, especially when it comes to like descriptive language and describing the setting or describing a person or an outfit. whatever it may be, describing the night outside. Like, the way he does that is insane. Like, there were so many quotes that I think were just stunning, and I was rereading because I was like, just like everything that I said, the way that he strings certain words together, and you're like, who in the world thinks to describe something in this way? And he does, and he does it wonderfully, and that is why I think he has stood up over the past 100 years, you know, since this was published, and is still being read today and is still so well known, is because he's very talented. But I just didn't care for this story, and that is very, very unfortunate. Now, to move on to the other portion, the lyric portion. So, I did not discover this before reading the book, but I found a video of Dave from Glass Animals talking about the book and the song, and from what I can tell, I don't know if he actually read the book. I think he just took the title and some of the general themes of the story, and that is where he came up with the idea for the song, The Other Side of Paradise. So before I get any further, I'm going to insert a clip, that clip of him talking about it, and then we'll come back.
Hey, what's up? We've got this song called The Other Side of Paradise, and I was going to tell you a little bit about what the lyrics mean without giving too much away. But I took the title from a book by F. Scott Fitzgerald called This Side of Paradise. He wrote The Great Gatsby, but this was his first book, and I'll read a little bit about what that book is about. It says on Wikipedia, the novel explores the theme of love warped by greed and status seeking. That's it. That's what Other Side of Paradise is about.
So, as you guys can see, it's not fully, like, I don't think the book really fully inspired the song, which I'm a little bit disappointed by, because I know the song, and I've known the song for years, since it came out, and the song itself definitely tells a story, and so I thought, hearing that This Side of Paradise inspired the song The Other Side of Paradise, I was like, okay, so the story within the song, I feel like, is gonna be similar to the story within the book, and it's not. It's an entirely different thing, but I guess I could kind of see some of the themes. So I will go through the lyrics briefly. I'm not going to read all of the lyrics because, like I said, it's entirely different. It's not like Perfume, where you could tell that the lyrics told the story that was the same story of the book. This is entirely different. So, in the song, The Other Side of Paradise, it starts off with saying, "When I was young and stupid, my love left to be a rock and roll star. He told me, please don't worry, wise little smile that spoke so safely. He booked a one-way ticket, out west, that's where they make it. He met a girl who wore Versace, pink feather coats, and jumbled jewelry. He's got a gold Camaro," he said over the payphone. "I try to keep my cool, but my life turns in slow motion." And the chorus for the song goes, "Bye bye baby blue, I wish you could see the wicked truth. Caught up in a rush, it's killing you, screaming at the sun you blow into. Curled up in a grip when we were us, fingers in a fist like you might run. I settle for a ghost I never knew, super paradise I held on to." It's so weird to be reading the song lyrics without, like, singing it. I'm just throwing that out there. It's very strange. There's also a line that says, "He'd stay and treat his lady, give everything to his new baby. I miss him, don't you blame me. That boy went stone cold crazy." And then the very end of the song, it comes to this big climax at the end. "I think it's over now. The bullet hit, but maybe not. I feel so fucking numb. It hits my head and I feel numb." And I thought, like I said, there's more lyrics to that, but that clearly tells a story within the song, and so I thought that was like what this story was going to be, and it's not. But I'm glad to have read it anyways. I guess I had more to say about this than I thought that I did before going into it. I don't know if I'm going to rate this one. Maybe I will. I would say probably 2 stars because I didn't enjoy the story. Like I said, I don't need to keep repeating myself, but you cannot deny the quality of the writing, and I can't give it 1 star because of that fact. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Now we are on to the last book, so I will see you guys very shortly. So I am back to finish out the video and give you guys my final update for In Cold Blood. Let me start by saying sorry if there's like background noise. It's really noisy in here right now. I don't know why. I think somebody outside somewhere is playing music really loud and I can just like hear it. So apologies for that. Anyways, I read In Cold Blood, and very early on, I feel like I knew that this was likely going to be a 5-star, and it is. I didn't do an update while I was reading it because, to be honest, I didn't feel like there was any right time to sit down and do an update. There was never a moment where I was like, I need to sit down and talk about this book, although I was enjoying it. It's just, I don't know, it just didn't feel like one that I could sit down and do an update on, because it's not a fiction story where you're like reading along and you're like analyzing the themes in it and you're like, I can't wait to see what happens next. It's not that type of story. Like, this is true crime, although technically I think it's like true crime fiction, because although it is like a real case, the author has, some things are kind of like fictionalized, and the way that he chose to tell the story makes it read like fiction. If you are not aware of what this book is about, I believe this was published in 1966 and is kind of like a pioneer of the true crime genre. The case that this was about was a murder of a family in 1959 in Holcomb, I think is how it's pronounced, Kansas. The Clutter family, Mr. and Mrs., the parents, and then 2 of their children, Nancy and Kenyon, were killed. They were tied up in their home and shot, and yeah, that's the case. The people are investigating who did it, and we come to learn who the murderers are, which is Dick and Perry, who are on the front. And it does read like fiction because of the way that Truman Capote, the author, chose to tell the story. He writes it like a narrative, like almost like it's a fiction story. He really brings you into the lives of not only the victims, the Clutter family that were killed, and what their lives were like and what the days and the hours and the minutes leading up to this event were, but you also get brought into the lives of the killers as well, as we're following them leading up to the murder, and then also what they do after, and the whole process of them being caught and everything in between them. The writing is extremely descriptive. And when I first started it, I kind of felt like this might be slightly overwritten. Like, I didn't personally think that, but I feel like I could see criticisms for the book saying that, because like every single thing is described in immense detail. Like, Truman Capote really paints a picture of every single scene and every single person that is talked about within the book, and I really appreciate the way that that was written. It was kind of just like mind-blowing and like just a beautiful work of art, I guess, when you analyze it that way. But then knowing that it's a true case, like this is something that happened, these are real people, and this is how their lives ended, and you know, that's somebody's loved one, that's somebody's parent, somebody's friend, and somebody's neighbor. And it's kind of like you're reading it and you're admiring it for the way that it's written, but it's also very unsettling and eerie while you're reading it, because you know like what is to come for these people. It's a very heavy read. Like, if I were to describe it in one word, I would say it is very heavy. But we get set the scene at the very first chapter. We get described what this small town in Kansas is like, what the Clutter family is like, what their neighbors are like. They lived on a farm, they kind of ran a farm, and were pretty well loved by everybody in town. They just seemed like the good old all-American family of the 50s. You know, they were very religious. They were, like I said, they were running their own farm. They had their animals. They had crops. They got along well with all of the neighbors. They were always having people over or going out of their way to help other people within the community. And they just seemed like a typical American family of the time. So it was very shocking, obviously, for them to be killed, especially in the way that they were killed, without any witnesses or really any trace of who these killers are. So it was definitely a very interesting case to follow the process of that. I don't even know what to say. I want to say it was like a powerful, like an impactful read, and it was in ways, but it was a very heavy read once again. So of course, you know, the deeper, I don't know, themes within the book, not really a theme, but like the deeper message within the book is it's analyzing like crime and punishment, the prison system, the justice system, the death penalty, especially because once they catch the killers, they are sentenced to death, death by hanging, and they do. It's talking about that, and throughout the whole book, you know, we are learning the full story and how devastating the entire situation is, not only for the people that were killed, the people that lost their lives, but for everybody involved. And it just is a very humanizing look at the killers, and I feel like this, I can't even imagine, I don't know. I mean, clearly it had like a profound impact over the years, right? It is written in 1966, still being talked about today, and I totally understand why, but I'm like, I wonder what it was like during that time to have picked this up and like true crime fiction not really being a thing, but reading this book and you get, like I said, this humanizing view of the killers that really makes you think about the idea of, okay, one wrong has been committed, right, with these murders, but is it just to then commit another murder because of that? Which is not only what the book is about, but also what the song is about. I feel like I don't have a lot more to say about this, so I might just transition into talking about the lyrics of the song, because I feel like it is very interconnected. I think this is definitely a good choice on my part to save this one for last, because I don't know, I just feel like this is definitely one where the song relates so much to the book more than any of the other ones that I've read. And this is even like before I even knew that the song was necessarily about this specific case. I feel like the themes and the message of the song is very, very clear and could be applied to like any true crime case in which the death penalty was served. So I'm going to pull up those lyrics. While I do that, I will insert the clip of Bastille talking about the song and talking about the book. So you guys can watch that, and then I'll get the lyrics.
I was just really taken aback by In Cold Blood when I read it a few years ago, and yeah, I guess the song just kind of came out of that. We had this song, which is about the kind of first wave of true crime fiction. I guess the song's sort of another super happy Bastille song that looks at kind of very, very loosely looks at kind of like capital punishment and how weird it is, and you know, two wrongs don't make a right, all that kind of stuff. That's the thing that's so interesting, I think, with In Cold Blood. Reading it, you know, it's so beautifully written and it's such an engagingly constructive kind of narrative, but then you constantly remember that this happened.
So let's just get right into it, because like I said, like all of the lyrics directly relate to the book and the case. So it starts off, these four walls to keep you, one floor to sleep upon, and only these four walls to keep you. These four walls contain you, supposed to save you from yourself. These four walls in Holcomb to keep you from the sun, which is very clearly about like prison and being in a cell. These four walls contain you. It also directly brings up Holcomb. I think that's how you say it. I hope that's how you say it. Which is the town in which these murders occur, and it's just very clearly about like a prison cell. The next verse, Now we're faced with two wrongs. I don't know. And then it's just repeated. Now we're faced with two wrongs, which once again goes back to the idea of course it's wrong to commit murder, right? Everybody knows that. But what makes it okay to commit another murder in turn for that? Like, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but like, two wrongs don't make a right, essentially, just like Bastille said, Dan said in the video. We could be born to anything, and now what you have done is terrible, and now you carry it with you, which is talking a lot about, I mean, we talk a lot about the murderers, the killers in here, and this song is called the Ballad of Perry Smith, so I guess it's more so about Perry rather than Dick, but both of them really, you get to learn about their upbringing in here, and I think it's just like that idea of anybody could be born to anything. And there, I don't know if it's in the lyrics, but I know that there is sampling in the song that I've always loved, and there's a quote of somebody speaking, and they say, to be brought up one way and trying to see another way can be very difficult. And I think that relates to the line, we could be born to anything, what you have done is terrible, now you carry it with you. So it's acknowledging that your upbringing, your past trauma, like your childhood trauma, everything that you go through and what you are modeled as a child really does shape you. And of course, I'm sure that definitely played a role in the lives of both of these men and what then became their future with committing not only the murder but all of the other crimes that they committed. And that doesn't mean that is like set in stone. The way that you were raised is the way that you are going to be, but it does have a big impact on it. And I feel like not a lot of people like to acknowledge that, and especially if this was written in the 60s, I'm sure it was even less so talked about then or acknowledged then. So that, I feel like, is another reason why this book was probably so impactful and continues to be that way, because it's bringing up these ideas that not a lot of people like to face, that there were outside circumstances that led to these men being the way that they are. And of course, everybody has the power to change that. Like, nothing is set in stone. The way that you are raised, although does have a big impact on you, you can still change that. And so the song acknowledges that by saying, what you have done is terrible, and now you carry it with you. Like, you have to accept that you did something horrible despite, any of these other factors. Next says, these four walls will keep you until you face the rope. You've only these four walls before they, in cold blood, hang you up, which again references the death penalty, the hanging. It also nods to the title of the book, and then just the idea of like they are sitting on death row, and they are in these cells contained within these four walls. They get a window to the outside, but the only time that they would leave this area was to go and get a shower once a week. And the rest of the time they didn't get any exercise time or any sort of entertainment like cards to play with or anything. Like, they were stuck within this contained cell until the day came that they were to die. So a lot of the song lyrics are just kind of repeating, we could be born to anything, now what you have done is terrible, and now you carry it with you. There's no view from here, no view from here. All you see is the sky, clouds passing by. Which again goes back to what I was just talking about, where they are stuck in this room. All they have is the window to look out, and they don't really get to see a whole lot. And then at the end, they have another bit of sampling. They have somebody that comes in and says, this is a collect call from Kansas State Penitentiary. Is that how you say that word? I don't know. And then the quote that I said, being brought up one way and trying to see another way is very difficult. And I just feel like, I don't know, even before reading the book or like knowing what the song was about, like knowing that it was about this sort of situation not necessarily realizing that it was based off of an actual case and actual murderers and a book about these murders. It still always was a very impactful song for me. Like, I think this is a beautiful song, and I've always loved that quote at the end. Being brought up one way and trying to see another way can be very difficult, but it's not impossible. I honestly don't have a lot more to say because I feel like the themes within the song, within the book, the connection between the two is very obvious. I don't think I need to sit here and go through everything little by little and walk you through it. I think you could probably understand as well and pick up on the deeper messaging within the book and within the music, and I think it's all very powerful and very well done, and like I said, is even before this, since the album came out, has been one of my favorite Bastille songs and will definitely hold up, especially having read this. It was a very heavy read. It was very difficult at times to read, especially as we're building up to the night of the murder, and viewing that from the perspective of the killers it was just a very heavy thing to read, very difficult to read. I read it before bed and I just had to sit there and just think about it because I was like, this is a lot. Like, this is horrific, devastating for everybody involved. So I think I'm gonna leave it here for this video. I really enjoyed filming this. There are a few other books that I do want to read and explore this a little bit more of the songs that were inspired by books, but if you guys know any, by all means feel free to leave them down below. I do have like, I don't know, I have like 3 more that I for sure will be doing a vlog for another episode. I don't know when, don't get your hopes up, but I really enjoyed doing this. I just like talking about books and I like talking about music, and when I can do that together and talk about some of my favorite artists and some of my favorite songs, it's just fantastic. This was by far the best read, the best outcome of the video, and the best experience that I had, and will give me even more appreciation for a song that I already had great appreciation for. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.